Welcome to the deep dive. We take compelling sources, research, history, philosophy, and, well, give you the shortcut to being really well informed. And today, we're taking a fascinating turn. We're moving away from, say, external strategies and focusing right on our internal architecture. Our sources today, they kind of invite us into the specific metaphysical framework for understanding success. We're exploring this powerful idea that outer achievement, the tangible stuff, is deeply linked to inner spiritual growth. We're drawing heavily on traditions linked with the sacred Atlantean Brotherhood and also teachings from Grandmaster Waxhira.
That's right. And for anyone listening who maybe hasn't encountered these names before, think of these sources as providing a kind of ancient blueprint, like a spiritual engineering perspective on how the universe works, and maybe more importantly, how you fit into that working. Our mission today is really to unpack what they call the natural law. It's based on that old principle, as above, so below.
Yeah.
And we'll analyze the internal spiritual hierarchy that, according to these teachings, well, it governs and dictates your external reality.
Right, so we're looking at the hidden plumbing of achievement, you could say. We want you to be informed not just about, setting goals, but about the very infrastructure inside you that has to exist to actually sustain those goals. So let's start with the big question, the challenge maybe. Can your circumstances, your achievements, your happiness level, can they really rise higher than your inner state, your thoughts and emotions?
And that question takes us straight to the core idea, the principle of source and reflection. The source material is really emphatic here. This is a law, not just a nice thought. It basically states, just as water can't rise higher than its source, the world of human affairs cannot rise higher than its inner source. Simple as that.
Wow, okay. That immediately reframes where we put our energy, doesn't it? If the outer world, our job, relationships, bank balance, if that's all just a reflection,
Right.
well, it means many of us have spent years trying to polish the mirror.
Exactly. When the real issue is the object being reflected. The actionable insight here is pretty clear. Stop treating symptoms, start treating the source. Your quality of life isn't ultimately determined by external stuff coming in. It's intrinsically linked to the quality underneath, your thoughts, your emotions, your spiritual awareness.
It's like that tree analogy you mentioned earlier.
You see the success of the tree and its fruit, sure, but the health of that fruit depends entirely on the roots in the soil. The outside is just the visible result of the inside.
Okay, so that leads us to this concept of the natural hierarchy. The sources say the universe is structured so the lower always respects or submits to the higher. We see physical examples like gravity, okay, but applying this to the mind and the spirit, that's where it gets really interesting.
What's fascinating is that this is presented as an active spiritual law of governance. It's always working inside every single person. Your mind and emotions, they aren't equal partners in this system. They exist in a hierarchy, a chain of command. And if you want to influence that outer reflection we talked about, you really have to understand this internal chain of command.
All right, let's break that down then, because this seems like where the listener really gains some control, potentially. If we follow this chain, where do we start? The physical world is the result, but what governs that?
Okay, so zooming in, the first level up, according to these sources, is emotions. They're described as subtle, powerful forces, kinetic even. They make you feel things and they make you act. But here's the key. Emotions are fundamentally followers. They submit to the lead of your thoughts and your logic.
Ah, okay, so my feelings follow my thoughts.
Essentially, yes. Your emotional state is shaped by the intellectual content you're generating or, taking in. So if your thought patterns are rooted in logic that's maybe fearful or limited or negative, well, the emotions that follow will be things like anxiety, feeling stuck, dissatisfaction. But if your thoughts are grounded in clarity, possibility, higher reasoning, then your emotions naturally become more centered, positive, balanced.
Okay, but hang on. That sounds neat on paper, but let's be real. Don't we often see the opposite? People whose emotions like panic or despair or maybe addiction completely hijack their logic. They might be brilliant, but they're paralyzed. How do the sources explain that inversion?
That's a really critical point. And the sources teach that this kind of conflict, this inversion, happens when the lower levels emotions, even thoughts, are ungoverned by the highest level in the hierarchy. See, logic by itself is still limited. It can only work with the data it has.
Right. Garbage in, garbage out, basically.
Yeah. If that data is fed by fear or past trauma or just negativity, then the logic will actually reinforce the fear. And that creates the paralyzed emotional state you just described.
Ah, I see. So logic isn't the top dog either.
Exactly. Which brings us to the highest form of knowing in this system.
Yeah.
Intuition. And intuition here isn't just a vague gut feeling. It's defined as the guiding force of pure spiritual insight. The whisper of the soul, as some texts put it. It's like a light that transcends the limits of just mechanical thinking.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. Logic has to submit to intuition to avoid those fear loops. So practically speaking, what's the difference for someone listening? How does a thought governed by fear feel or look different from one governed by intuition?
The core difference is the premise, the starting point.
Front.
A logical thought governed by fear might sound like, I have to protect what I have so I can't take any risks. Makes sense logically from that premise.
Okay, safety first.
Right. But a logical thought governed by intuition might sound more like, I understand my higher purpose, so logic dictates I must take these specific steps to fulfill it. The logic is still there, but the governing source, the intent behind it, shifts. It moves from self-preservation based on a feeling of lack to self-realization based on, well, wisdom.
I see. So the logic serves a different master.
Precisely. And therefore, the key takeaway for the listener is this. True. Sustainable success, the kind these sources talk about, happens when intuition is allowed, consciously, to govern the entire internal structure. Intuition guides thought. Thought stabilizes emotion. And harmonious emotion then reflects outward as a harmonious life. Simple chain, but profound implications.
That framework really demands a huge shift from how we usually think about growth, doesn't it? Traditionally, our whole upbringing is kind of built on two main phases. First, physical development, eating right, sleeping, making sure the body's okay, a healthy container. Then we pivot hard to intellectual development, school, getting knowledge, job training, sharpening the mind. Now, our sources today, they acknowledge this is necessary. You need a strong body, a sharp mind. But they're very clear. This structure is incomplete.
It's incomplete because it focuses almost entirely on the acquisition of things, knowledge, skills, resources, rather than the being of the individual, the inner state. Think about it. Just like physical food shapes the body, our spiritual inputs, our thoughts, our emotions, our practices, they shape our inner world. And that inner world is the actual engine driving external success.
Right. We all know people who are brilliant, intellectually amazing.
Exactly. Brilliant minds, incredible knowledge, but still trapped by negative emotions they haven't governed, leading to dissatisfaction or even self-sabotage. The traditional path prepares the container, you could say, but it often neglects the quality of the water you put in it, the source itself.
And the sources stress that this mindset, this inner landscape, starts shaping our world way earlier than we think, even in childhood. A positive inner state generates curiosity, sees opportunities. A negative one creates limitations, maybe even dissatisfaction before anything's even happened. So the external success or lack of it that we achieve as adults is really just the materialized projection of that inner world we've been building or neglecting for years.
hmm And this provides the context for what they call the spiritual evolution phase. The Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood talks about this as the search for Atlantis. Now, this isn't about finding a lost city. It's a metaphor.
Okay. What's it a metaphor for?
It's the quest to reconnect with your own divine essence within, to awaken the soul to its own intuition, basically, and unlock that highest potential that goes way beyond just learned behavior or logic alone.
Wow. That completely changes the metric for success then. It moves the goalpost from getting stuff to being aligned. So what does true spiritual success actually look like, viewed through this lens? Is it all meditation and no action?
Not necessarily. Success gets redefined. It's no longer measured primarily by the material stuff, the job title, the bank balance, the size of the house, and though those things might come. Instead, success is measured by the alignment of your spirit, mind, and body, all rooted in self-realization, in embodying those higher governing principles we talked about.
That shifts everything. Grandmaster Waxira has a quote that seems to nail this down. He says, "The outer world can never give you what you do not already possess within."
Yeah, that quote is profound. And the implication is huge. If you're seeking happiness externally, well, you first have to source happiness internally. If you want abundance, you have to align your inner world with the principles of abundance, wisdom, truth. You have to be it first. When that inner source is governed by these higher principles, the outer world has to shift into harmony. It's that natural law again. It reflects the new internal frequency.
Okay, let's bring this back to the everyday. We often hear about transcending the material world. But sometimes that sounds like escapism, like floating away. How do our sources define transcendence here?
It's definitely not escapism in this framework, not at all. Transcendence here isn't about escaping your circumstances, it's about elevating your inner state so you can influence those circumstances from a higher position of internal governance.
Ah, so influencing, not ignoring.
Exactly. You don't ignore the material world, you transform it from the inside out. By making sure your internal hierarchy, intuition over thought, thought over emotion, is working correctly. Always led by wisdom.
It sounds like the deepest message here is really about taking ownership. Ownership of your internal operating system.
Precisely. It brings us back to the conclusion. We become the source of our own success. By actively ensuring the quality of our inner source is, well, impeccable. And that means consciously choosing to be governed by love, wisdom, intuition, rather than letting lower forces like unchecked emotions or fear-based logic run the show internally. This whole journey they describe is about becoming a conscious reflection of the divine order that, they claim, already exists within you.
That's a tremendously powerful way to look at things, a framework for some serious self-examination. So here's the final thought for you listening. If this inner realm truly is the source of everything you experience, what subtle, maybe critical change could you make in the governance of your own thoughts or emotions today? Which link in that chain, emotion submitting to thought or thought submitting to intuition, needs the most attention in your life right now? Consider how becoming that conscious reflection of the divine order within, as our sources put it, might profoundly change your daily pursuit of goals. Maybe shifting it from a demanding struggle to something more like an effortless act of internal alignment. Lots to think about there. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us. We'll catch you next time.